Hello, my name is Chris Ringstaff. I'm an experimental archaeologist, and today I want to talk to you about biface technology. Well, so what is a biface? Well, just simply put, in chipstone technology, a biface is a piece that has been struck on two sides. And so here's an example where one face you can see the flake removals, and here's another face where you can see the removals. So why bifaces? What's the advantage of bifacial technology? Well, again, if you will notice, this particular specimen, it has some convexity here and convexity there, so that gives it what we call a biconvex cross-section. So it really gives it a lot of tensile strength in terms of use. So given that strength, it can be used for a lot of different functions. It can be used for throwing, or it can be used for cutting, or essentially a Swiss Army knife can be used for a lot of different functions, and they're particularly adaptive for groups that are mobile, that are frequently on the move. So in the context of Paleo-Indian archaeology, which is the focus of your class, I want to talk about two different biface types, Clovis and Folsom. This would be a Clovis biface. It's a replica. Now, as you can see here, it has a channel scar that comes from, or a flute, that comes from the base toward the tip. And what that does, it facilitates hafting onto a foreshaft. It might look something like this, or hafting on an item like this. This is a bi-beveled rod where the flute would actually fit onto this beveled part and another bone piece. The exact mechanism through which is not very well understood. That would be a question for Dr. Kilby. But that's kind of the gist of it. Now, Folsom technology, they've taken this fluting idea to an extreme. You can see on this cast specimen how the flute runs all the way from the base almost completely to the tip. This specimen is quite thin. Clovis biface, it's a multifunctional tool used for analysis on these things. Have shown that they've been used for throwing, they've been used for knives, so essentially the Swiss Army knife. With the thinner, smaller Folsom points, not so much. You have two different biface systems that are being used with this. You have the fluted points, as well as the unfluted points, which that's an academic debate in itself that I won't digress into, and the ultra-thin bifaces. So when I talked about the biconvexity, this thing is pretty flat. It is super thin. Well, it makes it more brittle. It's not good for throwing. Well, why the thinness? Well, as you decrease that edge angle, the thing gets very, very sharp. So essentially, use-wear analysis on these have shown that they're probably essentially fillet knives for hacking up bison antiquities. All right. So what are some of the raw material considerations with biface production? All right, so here's a fairly flat piece of raw material. It's kind of tabular. So, essentially I could come in here and put an edge on this and start striking pieces across, make myself a very large biface, maybe something in that range. So you can see how that guy is hiding somewhere in there, right? Okay, now for a big nodular piece like this, well, edging this thing, so the reduction process I'm gonna have to use a different approach essentially. So I would knock off a very large flake, take this flake, and turn it into the biface. So you can see, in a flake of this size, maybe that biface is hiding somewhere in there. Okay. Now, so those are some of the raw material considerations. Alright, well, let's kind of move on to a demo, you know. Let me take a piece of raw material. We'll do a little bit of the initial reduction. I can use this. I'm going to step out of camera, grab my trusty quartzite hammer stone, and we're going to edge this thing a little bit. Probably be a little bit loud. There we go. And this piece is rather hard. There we go. Now you can see some of the large flakes coming off this thing. Now kids, don't try this at home. You can put your eye out. That is a joke. But seriously, for those of you in the Experimental Archaeology Club, don't forget those safety glasses. Alright. There we go. So right now I'm just trying to create myself a little platform without getting an arterial wound here. This thing's a little unwieldy. It's kind of heavy. Alright, so we're just getting a couple more strikes on this thing. This kind of, see some blood here somewhere. I don't know where. Ah, got one there. There we go. Alright, so essentially as I'm creating this, I'm also creating a bifacial core. There we go. And this particular piece, even though it's fairly homogeneous, I may want to heat treat it, make it a little bit more brittle. And so for the later denning process, ooh, there's a good flake. Okay, so there's my initial biface, got kind of a core. So once this is prepared nicely, I might take this along with me, and these pieces, which are good, leave the waste, and this is what you might find at a lithic procurement site. So that's the initial biface technology. Alright, so here, soft hammer percussion, direct percussion thinning. Here's a biface. Now Dr. Kilby has done a lot of research on bifaces, particularly Clovis bifaces, and in that Clovis biface caches. So here would be, a cache where you take raw materials and you store them around the landscape in anticipation of further use. Now, that's a very simplistic definition because those uses vary, and the reasons for leaving these things behind vary, and Dr. Kilby can go into that in detail later. I'll leave that up to him. Alright, so back to the demonstration. I'm just going to, real quick, show you direct soft hammer percussion. So here I'm going to use a heavy billet. I'm going to prepare myself a platform. Right. And so right now, I'm shaping my platform and I'm scrubbing it. I'm dulling it a little bit. And I've got several platforms to choose from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load that platform with some match and detach a flake. There we go. And there's my flake. It's got a nice lipped platform and a nice, not quite transverse blow there. And maybe take off one or two more. Shape this thing up for myself later. Yeah, there we go. Take out a couple of these little steps and hinges. Alright. And so this would be a direct percussion technique with a soft hammer. Ah, come on. There we go. That's the one. Okay, so enough of that. One last thing. So I'm going to show you the indirect percussion technique. I don't have a really particularly good biface to do what I'm about to do, but I've got something that I think is just adequate. So we'll just see if it comes off or not. And that is, I'm going to put a flute or a channel flake in this one. It's going to be kind of oblique, which you see from time to time because some of the mass is missing right here. So I'm targeting convexity in the biface. And rather than strike it directly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place what I'm going to call a punch onto that platform, and then strike the punch and transfer the energy through that punch. So let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to grind this platform a little bit. It's been kind of shaped a little bit ahead of time. So let's see if this works. Now, for you experimental people and are interested, always keep your debitage out of the way, because it'll get you when you're not really even thinking about it. All right, here we go. So here I'm going to take another peek at the mass I'm trying to target. Support my biface, and nope. Let's try that again. Let me use a little bit larger punch. Just wallop the hell out of this thing. Yes! And so there it went. An oblique strike, then the base, and there are the fragments of my oblique channel flake. So there it is. That's a quick demonstration of lithic technology and discussion on bifaces. So it's been fun. I hope you're entertained. Study hard and be safe out there. Thank you.